Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today, and thanks for your interest in MIT Sloan's MBA program. As Melissa mentioned, I'm Kelly. I am part of the MBA program office team. I work as a senior associate director, focused mainly on academics and the curriculum, and I'm also one of our cohort advisors for students in the program. So let's get started. Next slide. So MIT Sloan's mission is to develop principled and innovative leaders who improve the world. And our goal is to give each MBA student 2 years full of both the challenge and the support that accelerates learning and development and allows you to reach the top of your potential as principled and innovative leaders. And in the diagram that you see here, you'll see that the student is at the center, illustrating how you sit at the center of your MBA experience. And for each student, this really looks different. But no matter what experience you come in with or what academic and career goals you have set for yourself, what you can count on is an education that encompasses intellectual rigor, diverse thinking, and a priority on building leadership skills. And funneling into these overlaying principles are the MBA program pillars of innovative hands-on learning, integrated leadership development, world-renowned faculty, rewarding careers, and the MIT experience or ecosystem. So today, as Melissa mentioned, we're going to focus on the classroom learning and curriculum elements of these pillars, the foundation for which is our unique one-semester MBA core. Next slide. An integral part of the MBA core experience is the support system that is embedded from day one. So each student is assigned to a cohort and a core team on the first day of orientation using an algorithm to maximize diversity of perspectives on a number of dimensions. And each of the 6 cohorts shown here are named after oceans and seas. Each cohort has 11 core teams with 6 or 7 students each. So a cohort's about 70-something students. And students work closely with these core teams throughout all their core courses. Each cohort also has a dedicated MBA program advisor, of which I am one, and each core team is matched with a second-year core mentor who acts as a guide throughout your first 100 days at Sloan. Next slide. The MBA core is completed in your first fall semester. It's a one-semester core, and it consists of, Melissa, if you can click. It consists of 5 full semester courses taken with your cohort, and those courses are economics, data models and decisions, or what we call DMD, communications, organizational processes, and accounting. And then you also take leadership challenges for an inclusive world, or what we call Lead Week, which I'll share more about shortly. And then you'll have your choice of 1 core elective to take in your first fall semester as well, and you can choose between finance, operations management, marketing, or strategy. And then after that first core semester, you'll have the remaining 3 semesters to tailor your coursework to your specific goals through Sloan Electives, action learning courses, courses on main campus MIT, even cross-registering at Harvard's professional schools. We have a relationship with them, perhaps completing a certificate or doing a semester abroad through our small exchange program. MBA program advisors, your second-year core mentor, other second years, and faculty can all be helpful in thinking through how to curate your curriculum over the 3 elective semesters. And then you'll see on the right side of this slide, beyond the core, your remaining degree requirements are to complete at least 144 graduate level elective units. This averages about 5 courses per semester, depending on which ones you choose. One of these electives must be from our pre-approved leadership elective list. You'll also be participating in Sloan Intensive Period or SIP Week. I'll also share more on that shortly. And then the final degree requirements in order to graduate with your MBA are to obtain a B average GPA and complete the 4 full semesters. Next slide. So Lead Week is a unique thing that was developed to create a core educational experience for first semester MBA students that helps recognize that being an effective leader requires a deep understanding of what it means to be a human in a complex world. For 3 consecutive days in the middle of October, first-year MBAs will take a break from regular classes, and instead they select 6 3-hour workshops distributed evenly across the topics of leadership, ethics, and diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI. So examples of some of this year's workshop titles include Sports, Race, and Gender, Solving the Climate Crisis, an on-roads climate policy simulator, Leading through Storytelling, and Ethics in Product Design and Marketing. So not only is Lead Week an opportunity to hear from some amazing experts in these kind of really interesting areas, but it gives students a chance to be in the classroom with peers from outside of their cohort for the first time in the core semester, and to begin to build those connections, setting up for the next 3 elective semesters. I also had mentioned the degree requirement of Sloan Intensive Period, or SIP Week. This requirement can be fulfilled by completing workshops in the spring semester, which are similar in structure to what I just talked about with Lead Week, or there's a couple other ways to complete this requirement. You can do it by participating in certain action learning labs, treks, or study tours, which all occur over this SIP week in mid-March, right before spring break. Next slide. I had mentioned options to customize your curriculum, and one of those is through certificates, which are open to all Sloan degree students. There are 7 certificates that you have the option of pursuing during your time at Sloan. Certificates are completely optional, but they provide a curriculum path for the industry or functions of those listed here. So entrepreneurship, enterprise management, finance, business analytics, product management, healthcare, and sustainability. Students who complete the set of requirements set forth by the certificate will receive the certificate in addition to their degree at graduation. And particularly for career changers, certificates can be very helpful in giving direction to your course choices, signaling a concentration area to potential employers, and facilitating connections with students who have similar career goals. Next slide. So unlike some possibly peer schools, MIT Sloan does not follow just one teaching method. You'll see case studies, small group projects, traditional lectures across all of our electives, and often, if not always, within the same course, they switch up the teaching methods. However, if I was to name one signature kind of teaching method at Sloan, I'd talk about action learning. Through action learning courses, or we call them labs, students apply the theory and concepts that they're learning in the classroom to real business challenges posed by external company sponsors. And each year, Sloan faculty offer over 15 action learning courses, focusing on either a regional area, an industry, or an interdisciplinary topic. Many of these action learning labs include travel to spend time at the location of the company sponsor, but some remain local on campus. And these courses are very popular with Sloan students because they offer a practical opportunity to learn how to structure and solve problems, how to collaborate effectively in a team, and how to lead through complex situations. So I've listed a few of our popular action learning labs here, but you can see our full roster of offerings on Sloan's action learning webpage. Next slide. As I mentioned at the beginning, developing principled leaders is in our mission statement. And the MIT Leadership Center believes that this involves pursuing deeper self and other awareness at 3 levels: individual, team, and organization. So the 3-course elective sequence here maps to each of these levels, starting with ID Lab, which is built on the premise that being an effective leader starts with understanding yourself. So traditional classroom learning, executive coaching, and informal interactions with classmates are combined to provide an environment for individual transformation in this ID Lab elective. The suggested path is then to take Teams Lab and conclude with Leading with Impact, which was formerly called Orgs Lab or Organizations Lab. Next slide. And then, as you can imagine, there is a lot of action around AI in the curriculum lately, and we often get asked about what we are doing in this area at Sloan. So I wanted to highlight a little bit of that here. Last summer, the MBA program introduced a new workshop for incoming MBAs led by Professor Eric So. This workshop was designed to lay the foundation for discovering the latest AI technologies and how to choose the right tools to use, for learning practical ways to incorporate AI into your daily tasks, for understanding AI ethics, and it gave hands-on exercises for classroom applications. And this was something that was offered to incoming MBAs as a kind of foundational level setting workshop as they entered the program. Faculty, we've had some courses in this area for a while, but faculty have introduced 2 new courses designed to equip managers and founders with the tools needed to excel in the future of Gen AI. And those this year were Gen AI for Managers and Gen AI Lab, which is an action learning course. And these courses are a deep dive into how Gen AI works, its use cases, and business implications for those managing teams all the way up to the executive level. On the technical side, operations research faculty have designed hands-on deep learning. This is a course focused on the engine behind predictive and generative AI, with an emphasis on developing a deep hands-on understanding of how to build the models to solve complex problems involving the processing of unstructured inputs. So like, how do we detect if a driver is falling asleep? And unstructured outputs. So how do we summarize the content of a customer service call transcript? Next slide. And in addition to AI and action learning and the leadership courses that I've just mentioned, here are just a few other courses new to Sloan's elective offerings this year, and a selection of others that may have been around for a while, but are consistently popular with our students. Next slide. And then finally, just carrying on with the kind of how to curate your academic experience in your elective semesters. We also offer several dual degree programs and other offerings. So we have the LGO program, which is a dual degree between engineering and MBA. We have a dual degree with Harvard Kennedy School, which combines public policy and MBA. We have a dual degree with MIT Department of Urban Studies and Planning. And then we have some students that come in with a Legatum Fellowship, and these students are focused on entrepreneurship in emerging markets. And as I mentioned, we have a small exchange program with London Business School and ESA in Barcelona, which allows a small number of MBA students to do a semester abroad at those schools. Next slide. Great. So I hope that this gives you a better idea of not only the core curriculum and the degree requirements, but also the many academic options, and just highlights the level of flexibility that you have within Sloan's MBA program. And I'll close it there, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Perfect. Thanks, Kelly. I'm going to stop my screen so it's easier to see. We have so many questions in the chat, so let's get to it. The first question for you, Kelly, is in January, we don't have classes at MIT. It's called IAP. Can you just tell us a little bit what is IAP and what do students do during this time?
Yeah, great question. So yes, so at MIT, the fall semester ends in mid-December, but the spring semester doesn't start until the first week of February. So that January period is called IAP, or Independent Activities Period. And this is something that's been, it's an MIT, not a Sloan innovation, I guess, but it's been around for a long time. And the concept behind MIT is that it gives, the concept behind IAP is that it gives MIT students a break from the rigorous academics. so that they have time to explore a wide variety of workshops offered by members of the MIT community. So not for credit workshops are offered during this January period on everything from Japanese flower arranging to like studying regenerative food to tours of the MIT Wright brothers wind tunnel. So that's kind of what IAP was designed for. But there are also several 4-credit classes that happen during IAP, particularly some of the action learning courses travel over IAP. So if you choose, you can earn some credits during IAP. And depending on your career interests, you may be really busy with recruiting, on-campus recruiting during that month, particularly for some finance and consulting roles and tech likely. So in short, there are many things you can do in IAP. You can earn credit, you can do workshops, you might be recruiting, but there's nothing you're required to do. You're not required to be here. And many students just use it as a chance to relax, to visit family, and just catch up on some much needed sleep after a very busy core semester.
Awesome. Thank you. We have a lot of questions about cross collaboration and cross registration. So I know you can take 3 classes outside of Sloan. Can you share a little bit more about how that works?
Yeah, so MBA students can take up to 3 non-Sloan courses towards their degree requirements. So up to 3 courses can count towards that 144 elective unit requirement that I mentioned. Non-Sloan means anything on main campus or anything cross-registered at Harvard. If you've perused our MIT course catalog, you'll notice that anything that starts with a number 15 is considered a Sloan course. It's taught by Sloan faculty. And anything that doesn't start with a number 15 is considered non-Sloan. You can take more than 3 non-Sloan or Harvard courses. It's just that only 3 will count towards those 144. And they have to be graduate level courses in order to count.
Awesome, thank you. So in terms of the first semester, what does the class schedule look like, or the hours? When can students be expected to be on campus?
Yeah, great question. So each cohort has a different schedule, and you will learn that schedule a few days before orientation when you get your cohort assignment. But you can expect that classes will not start any earlier than 8:30 and won't end any earlier than 5 p.m. unless you are taking a certificate that offers an evening certificate seminar, and those meet on Monday evenings. There is a lunch block, which is free from classes. That's from 11:30 to 1. That is when a lot of club, guest speakers happen, your core team meetings, you might have coffee chat scheduled during that block. So that's a block that's protected from classes. And classes run Monday through Thursday. Fridays, you won't have any courses, but you will have optional recitations for some of our classes. And recitations are where the TA offers like review sessions for what you learned in class that week. There are 2 Fridays in the core semester, generally in early September, that there are required special sessions of your core courses. And we would share those dates the summer prior to you coming.
Great. A lot of questions on certificates. So are certificates a requirement? How many of them can you do? Can you still cross collaborate with other courses if you choose to do certificates? So a lot of certificate questions.
Oh, great. Yeah, certificates are not required. They are completely optional. And like I said, they're open to all of Sloan, and some are even open to MIT graduate students as well. So there are 7 certificates in total. You can complete up to 2 certificates during your time in the program, and you can cross count up to 2 courses towards the requirements. So if managerial finance is an option on sustainability and the finance certificate, then you could count that towards both, but you can only do that for 2 courses. And the certificates are not, I believe the certificates are between like 35 and 45 units to complete a certificate. So it tends to happen that if you're generally interested in one of those areas, chances are it's not going to be a real challenge for you to complete the certificate units. So it's about, less than half of your elective units that you would devote towards a certificate. So you do have plenty of space to take courses outside of that particular functional area.
Great. So switching to action learning labs, how many action learning labs do you think students generally take?
I've never actually pulled the numbers on that. I would say most students take one during their time. Some students might take two. I don't think I've seen a scenario where a student has been able to take more than two, but I could be wrong. But yeah, I would say the majority of our students, it's something that they place a high priority on when they come in, that they want to take at least one action learning lab.
Great. Can you share a little bit more about competitions and things that kind of happen across campus?
Yes, so outside of academics?
A little bit outside. Okay,
Okay.
we're going outside.
So yeah, there are a lot of student-led clubs. There are a bunch of student-led conferences. We just wrapped up our investment management club sponsored a stock pitch competition. I think it was last week, where they invited a bunch of schools here to do a stock pitch competition. Our clubs often organize themselves and go to other competitions. There is a large MIT ecosystem of events and centers and initiatives that you can take advantage of. We also have a really active significant others and partners community. So your significant others and partners can get involved. But I would leave that to another webinar to talk more specifically about the events outside of the classroom. But it's very robust, and we say it's drinking from a fire hose, right? So it's just about figuring out what your goals are and trying to prioritize how you spend your time based on those goals.
Totally. Yes, there's a lot going on outside the classroom. So I know we talked a little bit about the leadership sequence. Is the leadership sequence a required set of courses that all MBAs need to take?
Good question. No. So the sequence that I showed of the ID lab, Teams lab, and Orgs lab is a recommendation for MBAs from the MIT Leadership Center based on MIT's leadership philosophy. So you are not required to take that sequence. They are really popular courses, in particular ID lab and Teams lab. You get executive one-on-one coaching through those courses, which is a really great benefit. And ID Lab in particular is only open to first-year MBAs, but it's not required, but they do meet. So there is a requirement to take one leadership elective. Those courses are on that list. And then there's also about 15 or 20 other courses on that list. So those would meet that requirement.
Awesome. Can you touch upon how Sloan students collaborate with like the Media Lab, CSAIL, Center for Real Estate, etc.?
Yeah, so all of those centers, I would say the most popular way that Sloan students collaborate is they all offer courses. So you can take courses that fall under Media Lab and Center for Real Estate and CSAIL, and those would likely be part of that one non-Sloan course limit. They all tend to have speaker series and events. So if you get on their mailing list, you can be active with them there. I mean, depending on your background and interest, there might be opportunities to work with faculty from those areas on research through a research assistant position. But I would say most often it's just through taking their courses, attending their speaker series, taking courses that bring Sloan students and those students together. Some of our ventures courses like FinTech Ventures or Energy Ventures tend to have collaborative team projects with students from outside of Sloan who are active in those areas.
Great. We got a few questions of, is it possible to transfer credits that somebody has done before Sloan and transfer them to the core or another elective?
Good question. No, Sloan does not accept transfer units. So the core courses are required. There are no waivers for any of the core courses.
Great. Thank you. So a lot of questions about dual degrees, if you just want to share very briefly about the dual degree and how that process works.
Yes, so our dual degree with HKS, Melissa, I'm actually not, if you are more familiar with how that admissions process works, I'll leave that to you.
I can totally
Okay.
answer this one. So many of the questions are about like HKS and LGO. So for both of these dual degrees, you have to apply for HKS concurrently to both HKS and Sloan at the same time in our round 2, and you'd have to be admitted to both of them to be considered. And for the Leaders for Global Operations, you have to apply directly to the LGO program to be considered for both MBA and LGO. And if your application is unsuccessful for LGO, you're automatically considered for MBA in round 2.
Thanks.
I hope that helps. All right, we'll do like one more question if that's okay, Kelly. So how hard is it to get into the elective classes that students want to take?
If you're referring to the core electives, where you have a choice of one of the 4 core electives, you will rank your choices in the onboarding process, and then we'll assign students based on their choice. Last year, everybody was able to get their first choice of core elective. With the electives beyond the core, the remaining 3 semesters, we have a bidding system for Sloan electives. So you're given a certain amount of points and you use those to bid for the courses that you want. Second years and your advisors and everything do presentations and share strategies on kind of how bidding and course registration works once you hit your elective semesters. But I think the best strategy is to just choose the 1 or 2 courses each semester that really are most important to you to take and put the priority on that for how you bid. But yes, there are some. So the bidding system is based on priority of graduation year. So second years would get first priority, first years would get second priority. But if you are really serious about wanting to get into the course and you're strategic in how you bid, there's very high chances that you'll be able to take that by the time the program concludes.
Great. All right, one more, Kelly. A lot of questions on how students manage their day-to-day activities, balancing the coursework with things outside. What have you seen as an advisor?
Yeah, so the core mentor is really helpful in this because the core mentors meet regularly with the core teams. And since you're working very closely with your core team throughout all of the core courses, so the load isn't just on you. You have your core team to lean on, and the core teams are particularly designed so that everybody comes in with different backgrounds and expertise. So you're almost sort of mentoring each other in your core team as you're going through the classes, as well as having that core mentor on top of it. But calendaring is a really important thing, blocking time out for yourself. And again, just understanding that yes, your goals might change from the time you come in to the time you leave, or even 3 weeks into the semester. But your program advisor can really work with you to think about what your goals are and then prioritize what you spend time on, in particular in your core semester. Because you don't have to do everything that you wanted to get done at Sloan in your first semester. You can choose 1 or 2 of those things to really focus on in your first semester and then leave some other things for the other 3 elective semesters.
Perfect. All right, well, Kelly, we got through a lot of questions. I hope everyone's questions were answered. But if you have any questions after this, please let the admissions team know. I'm going to put the email in the chat for you right now. We will have a few additional webinars coming up. We will have an info session in December, which will cover the curriculum and outside of the classroom. We'll have some students there as well. In early January, we're going to do an app tips webinar. So it's all going to be about the application. I know there were a lot of questions today about the application, but we really wanted to focus more on actually the curriculum. So I hope you'll join us for that. But here, the email is now in the chat, and I hope everyone enjoyed this session and learned a lot. I certainly did, Kelly. So I want to thank you again, and thank you everyone for joining.